Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, and good morning, and good evening, your time. If you are tuning in, it's Richard Munang, your host, and today we're going to be talking about context. I'm sure most of you know about context, right? It may sound as if it's a very straightforward aspect or issue, but let me put this in perspective so that at least you can be able to understand a few things. As you must have known, and you must have heard, context is everything. Because the reality is that if you don't understand context, you will really be in difficulty in driving transformational development. Context is everything. It is everything. Everything we do, we need to understand context because that's the core source of our success. And so today I'm going to put in perspective an example. If you were to be offered a briefcase full of cash on one hand, a bottle of water, and an uncomfortable ride on a camel's back on the other, I believe the choice would seem obvious, right? That you would take the briefcase full of cash any day until one contextual variable is thrown into the mix of all these. What if they say, okay, if they threw this contextual variable in the midst of all this, what are you going to do? Let me put this in the perspective of a story. A story is told of two siblings who are equally gifted, equally endowed, and equally exposed to opportunities, but whose accomplishments at the end of their life were totally different. One sibling was raised in the city, enjoying the convenience and ease of digital life that the city provided, while the other sibling was raised on the village farm, enduring the harsh village life of minimal convenience, but being exposed to all the aspects of running a farm, which was the source of the family's wealth. The city sibling always made a point of taunting the sibling at how much better he was having a life in the city. After they had come of age, their parents called them to interview them and determine who would take over ownership and the running of the family farm, which was the source of their wealth. When it came to the wire, it all came down to the wire. They were each asked to milk a cow and prepare a good glass of milk for their parents. It goes without saying that while a sibling who had been raised in the village was serving the parents, the one raised in the city was still struggling to restrain the cow for milking. Again, it goes without saying that a sibling raised in the harsh village life ended up being the heir of the family, source of wealth, the many farms that they had. So if the city sibling had known the importance of context, that one would not inherit the family wealth without knowing the family trait. He would have banished city life and joined the sibling in the village. Or he could have made the effort to go to the village most of the time to learn about village life. The point here is simple. Understanding context is everything. In everything we do, we must be able to understand context. If we miss context, then we're missing the core source of success. It therefore means that we owe everything to ourselves, the privilege of understanding the context within which we prefer solutions, within which we put solutions to work. Because let's face it, we are living in a very highly competitive environment. We are making progress will not be a straightforward line. It's going to be a lonely path. We're driving entrepreneurship. It's going to be a lonely path. But if you understand context, you will notice that the product that you produce can easily fetch a market. And so we must accept the reality that without understanding context, even the fact that we may have a solution to a problem, it might become quite very, very difficult. And so we must understand context. We must understand people's attitudes in our communities, in our society, so that at least if, for example, you are driving climate actionpreneurship solutions, developing briquettes, turning agricultural waste into briquettes, which is what we're inspiring youth across the continent to do, the African continent to do. If you do not understand what the community needs, what your village needs, you might actually develop those briquettes, and despite the fact that people are using charcoal and it is costing them a lot of money, they might not even accept to use those briquettes. These are realities. What I'm talking here are realistic aspects that I have learned and I have seen. And so if you are to understand people's needs and then come in with a product to close their gap, you will then have a market. You will expand your market share because the demand for what you are doing is there. So most of the time, people get started by doing something that actually is needed, but when they have missed the first part of convincing people so that they can understand that that is what they need. The fact that people are not having an opportunity doesn't necessarily mean that when you give them opportunity, they will seize it. And this is a very important point that I'm making here today. The fact that people don't have opportunity doesn't mean that when you give them opportunity, they're going to seize it. So you need to understand people's needs, work with them to then develop a product that suits their needs. And that is the missing point. And I'm bringing this up because contextual understanding and reality is something that we keep missing when we are developing projects, when we are offering solutions, and when we are providing or developing products to address a particular problem in a particular community or society. And that is why it is always good to understand what is somebody looking for. Our mothers in the villages have solutions to the challenges they face, but sometimes they have gaps which are unaffordable. And therefore, if you go to close a gap in a community, we need to understand if she is producing maize or cassava or beans or vegetables, and we just go with seeds when we have not even understand whether she's having bumper harvest and that her problem is that of storage, that she needs a solar dryer to dry her maize or her cassava. We go with seeds. That is not solving a problem. That is actually adding a burden because that is not what she needed. She needed a climate action solution like a solar dryer to dry her beans, to dry her rice, to dry her maize, to dry her vegetables. Or she needed a solar fridge to be able to store her products that she actually harvest or produce from her farm. So when we understand the needs of society and match them with what they need to close the gap, then we will advance transformational development. And this comes back to the word context. And this African proverb that goes that advice is important, but the African proverb tells us that advice is like a stranger. If he is accepted, he stays. If he is rejected, he leaves. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually just giving advice so that at least young people out there who have ideas, especially solutions to address environmental challenges. And I gave an example of turning agricultural waste to fuel briquettes. There's also turning agricultural waste to biogas. And if you go to my YouTube, you will see most of these. And if you go to my Twitter handle, you'll see a lot of these, or my LinkedIn page, you'll see a lot of this. But the point here is that we must always make an effort to understand context. If you miss context, like the example that I gave earlier, you will notice that you will be spending a lot of time doing things that sometimes we cannot make progress. Please drop your comments if you are listening. I can see a comment from Peter here, where he says one of the most important gaps that he realized in West Africa is how to charge mobile phones. And we met to drink tea and came up with the idea of a bus stop with solar roof. Excellent. That is a brilliant idea, Peter. And I think that this is something that at least actually must be helping lives. So, as you say, it is not an advice. It's the idea of the group drinking the tea in the Gambia. That's very, very interesting. So the point is that the contextual reality of identifying gaps is key. So the idea is that we cannot use supply-driven approaches and think that we can drive transformational development. Because I'm saying this because there's always, yes, currently in the continent of Africa today, there are droughts that are plaguing the Horn of Africa, plunging millions of people into suffering. Over 13 million people are food insecure. But at the end of the day, they are food insecure, but if they need immediate support of food, of supplies, etc. But we need to also look at what were they doing before that if those gaps were closed, they can then be able to strengthen themselves, because droughts are going to be recurrent now, especially with the changing climate. What can we do so that at least they can build on what they know and do it in such a way that at least they can be sustainable? And I think this kind of thinking is the kind of innovativeness that we need to then bring in when we are talking about transformational climate adaptation. How do we transform societies, both from a social, economic, and environmental perspective, that they can then be able to build on what is best and they understand, then close the gap of where they have limitations? That kind of thinking will really make a lot of difference. And I'm saying this because the young people with their vibrancy and ingenuity, which they're doing excellent work with innovations across the world and more so in the African continent, sometimes come up with brilliant ideas, yes, to close a gap, but they miss to sensitize the public and the population. And sometimes when one of the gaps to close is you sacrifice to produce an innovation, you must be able to make the community buy into it. Of course, you will not get immediate money, but once they win over your trust in terms of the product working for them, they will become part of your market share. This is entrepreneurship 101 understanding. Yes, please, if you have questions, you throw them in here and we'll answer them in the next 10 minutes. This short discussion will be running up. So the discussion today is context. Understanding context is the core for real success. If we do not understand context, then we will miss a lot of opportunities. And so we must always, at any time, look at what are the contextual realities. What are the contextual realities? Because if we miss that, we will have a lot of issues. And I will play these videos just to show you a little bit of context. Welcome to Innovative Volunteerism Voices, a space for you, a space for everyone to share their ideas and solutions on how we can turn challenges into opportunities. Let's face it, we are under the changing climate today, facing challenges ranging from droughts that are plunging millions of mothers, fathers, and children into spaces not their own, seeking opportunities that do not exist. We see floods across cities in the continent of Africa and elsewhere in the world. These realities have dawned on us, and we cannot afford for a minute to be despair, but instead to use our energies and time and get inspired to usher ourselves to action. Let's face it, as we're speaking today, every year in the continent, 700 Africans die as a result of indoor pollution. Our mothers, our parents, fathers, and children have committed no crime other than fetching for firewood, for fuelwood, for charcoal to cook food for their families. And this is resulting in deforestation, but it's also resulting in loss of life. And what does this tell us? We must see this through the lens of opportunity. By just simply turning agricultural waste into fuel briquettes, we can reverse the dependence on charcoal, which is worth a market of 20 billion in the continent, and therefore inspiring young people so that they can be able to retool their skills and turn challenges to opportunities and create climatepreneurship enterprises. Climatepreneurship opportunities is the essence of these Innovative Volunteerism Voices. Tune in, stay tuned, and share your ideas, because this is how we can build climate action to drive transformational development for people and planet. This is your voices, and be part and contribute your voice to these Innovative Volunteerism Voices. Stay tuned. I'll be back. Yes, and I'm right here. Stay tuned, and I'll be back. And I'm back. So context. We cannot drive transformational climate action solutions without, and building on the point that Peter Brunner indicated about the gap of charging a mobile phone, that he was drinking tea and came up with colleagues and came up with the idea of a bus stop with solar rooftop. That's a very brilliant. That's a climate action solution that can actually be done using a communal approach, whereby the community comes together, contribute money through a cooperative, and then by that, government can actually provide that solar dryer infrastructure to the community, but ensure that we have a public-private partnership in which the community now contribute money through a cooperative and then maintains that solar panel. so that at least the sustainability and the ownership of that by the people can actually happen. And I think this is quite a very important dimension and opportunity that we need to start thinking from this perspective. That is the way in which transformational climate action solutions, environmental solutions, development solutions to address the SDG, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, can be fostered. And I think that when we start to understand context, because solutions and ideas are universal, but the contextual implementation of those solutions and ideas are different. People, cultures are different, different attitudes. But when you understand culture and attitudes of people, then you can actually use them to the advantage of driving transformational development. And so no development can actually occur without understanding the cultural implications of it. And leveraging culture as a positive dimension of transformational development is an opportunity to push things forward. And I think that this is something that we can continuously discuss. I thought today we can then be able to focus on this and look at how does context matters. And I gave that example of two siblings, one living in a village and another one living in a city. And the one living in the city sees himself as more elitist. But the one living in the village had the opportunity to learn how to milk the family cows and even also how to cultivate the farm, do the planting, the harvesting, and also understood the practicality of local context. Then now when the time came for the parents to hand over the family wealth, he then brought the two siblings together and asked them to just milk a cow. But to the one who was in the city, he could barely even just catch the cow to be able to milk it. But the one in the village milked the cow and gave the milk to the parents, and the parents actually handed over the family wealth to that. What does it mean? Context. Regardless of where you are, never forget your roots. This is very, very important. Understand context. It may sound funny, but understand context. Excellent. And I think this is a very brilliant idea that Peter is bringing up here. He's saying that the boss actually is the bus stop is an investment of a village, of the community. This is brilliant. That communal spirit is quite very, very important. That is providing light and security, charging mobile phones and running a DC fridge. And it's becoming a point of sale of cool food to drivers normally driving by. This is an innovative solution. And scaling this up should be the focus. So the point is, if there are solutions like this, these are climate action solutions that have both environmental, economic, and social dimension. So scaling such actions up do not need reinventing the wheel or duplicating effort. So building on such, and I think this is really, and thank you very much, Peter, for providing this example, because this example showcases that there are no absence of ideas, of innovations that do exist in the African continent. This example you are giving is from the Gambia. And I believe there are others that are across the entire continent. If this is to be built on, then the community will then benefit more rather than starting something from scratch that have not been tested and that have not been owned by the community. And this example you are bringing here, Peter, is excellent because it actually showcases the ownership of the community's stake with this project, in the sense that everybody is contributing to it, so they own it. And so they're not going to allow such a project to leave them or to have a definitive an end, but they will try to make sure that it gets sustained and sustained and sustained. And so if that is upscale, and that is brilliant. I think, yes, thank you very much, Peter. I think you say here that everybody is welcome to copy this idea. I think it's a very brilliant idea. Yes, it's a very brilliant idea. And thank you very much, Peter, for sharing that idea. It's quite highly welcome. I believe so. The point, what I'm seeing from this idea that you have shared here, is that we need this public-private partnership, the PPP, at the lowest, at the micro level, not just at the macro level, because the villages, the communities themselves, they're private citizens, but their collective interest and their collective effort can actually help in ensuring that a policy can meet in the middle with the interests of the people. And when the people play their part, government play their part, such initiatives like this, with good incentives, I believe that youth can then be able to fabricate or to start developing solar fridges or solar panel businesses, and then the uptake will quite be very, very high. Thank you very much for that. Please share more ideas. Share more ideas if you have them. Thank you very much. So context is everything, and I actually thought that I should be able to share this today, and so by sharing this, we can generate some debate that is helping us to be able to advance some of these ideas. And I'll keep doing this every day when I have the opportunity. I will come up with a topic, and then we can continue. The one for today was context. Context is everything, and so we need to then be able to drive this. Just one aspect that I want to highlight before we end this in the next 10 minutes is that if you look at the young people who are passionate, who are vibrant, energetic, and have brilliant ideas, and they are developing different products from information communication technology to climate action solutions that are addressing issues of pollution, issues of post-harvest losses, issues of waste, etc. The contextual reality and the buy-in of the community is one aspect that I've tried to understand and look deep into, which is constantly being missed. And this missing link is actually preventing this uptake of these solutions at a rate that is fast. And so starting with the community and making community part and parcel of your business strategy and business plan, or of your solution strategy and solution plan, you will then be able to ensure that at least if you, for example, a community don't have accessible toilets, if you go in there to build plastic toilets, you need to engage the community to understand, first of all, how much plastic do they produce there? So that at least you use the plastic that they already produce, how many of them are builders, so that you work with them and ensure that at least you will end up, the ideas you will end up providing, you may end up having 80% of what can be done using already the human capital, the manpower, the man hours that are within that community, without necessarily having to introduce things that you could have tapped from that community. What does this do? It saves time, it avoids duplication of effort, and at the same time, it builds on what the community already, and because the community will be part of building that, as you provide guidance and advice, they will own it. That's the importance of context. And then Peter again says, yes, there are many ideas the NGO had for Gambia developed with the help of everybody who was interested to exchange content in local context. I love that. Content in local context. Very, very important. Context is important. And so this is really great. This is really great. We have 8 minutes to go. Please share ideas. Share ideas wherever you are watching. Share ideas so that at least we can then be able to look at and understand what you are doing in your own context that is helping ensure community ownership, community buy-in, and then as a result of that, challenges of society are being addressed, whether the challenges of environmental challenges, socio-economic challenges, and how this is contributing to the transformational development of the community. Yes, keep the ideas coming. Keep the ideas coming. Thanks again, Peter, for your ideas that you are sharing here. That's quite very, very helpful. I'm sure that a lot of people who are watching or who will watch after this episode will definitely be able to pick up these comments that you are making here, and some of them will be able to contact you and get more ideas on how they can be able to pursue such projects, innovative ideas and projects from the good work that you are doing in the Gambia with the NGO Heart for Gambia. Good job. Good job. So that aspect of leveraging on community ability to fill the gaps of what they don't have at the moment, it's important. It's important. It's important. I can see Kayode saying community buy-in is an important part of any project for sustainability. Yes, indeed it is. Yes, indeed it is. But this is something that is most of the time ignored by so many initiatives, which then after 4 years of a project, then it ends. After 3 years of a project, then it ends. And then we go back to the same, and the circles of duplication of effort continues. And I think it is really high time, because why I'm bringing this up is that we have barely just 8 years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. 8 years need development that is different from what we have been doing for the past couple of years. If we do not change gears in terms of speed and at the same time change track or path, we might be repeating the same thing with these approaches that we're using, duplicating efforts without necessarily making inroads. And so, especially again to the young people who are doing amazing work, I am guiding and providing advice that understand your context with anything you are doing. The community is your business. They are your business partners. They are your consumers. And that is where you are going to generate opportunities. And that is where you're going to make cash from the product that you are going to develop to solve the problems that they face. If they buy in from what you are doing, they will own it and you will succeed and the community will succeed. These are simple things that we ignore that are quite very, very important. I think Peter is saying here that I saw mango spoiling and I was told about it. I was told about 50%. We came up with the idea of building solar dehydrators and solar ovens and made of bamboo to preserve mango and many other fruits and vegetables. Wow, this is amazing, Peter. This is amazing. And I'm sure that the community owned this and the community was part of building this. So at the end of the day, the idea became the community ownership idea, and then they embraced it, and then sustainability became the norm. And these are not textbook things that happen. These are things that, if they are carefully calibrated, then we can then be able to have more opportunities that communities can then be able to actually pick up. I'll be right back. Climate change is not just an environmental issue. Climate change is a health issue. Climate change is a food security issue. Climate change is an economic issue. Climate change is a national and regional and global security issue. And more importantly, climate change is about jobs for our young people. Climate change is about helping mothers put food on the table and more money in more pockets. Climate change is about justice and equality. But what we are seeing is injustice and inequality, and we cannot take this lightly. And that's why voices matters. Innovative volunteerism voices, innovative volunteerism, an incubation space that is inspiring and ushering young people into solution spaces, helping them to turn their passions into profit. It's seeing them devise and develop innovations, simple innovations that are helping turn challenges of mothers in communities into opportunities. That's what innovative volunteerism voices is all about. It's about solutions. It's about coming together and inspiring one another to all become solution providers to turn the climate challenge into a climate opportunity. And that's what we call climatepreneurship, where young people are creating enterprises. They are creating ingenuity. They are moving climate challenge into opportunity that are helping them create businesses and put more money in their pockets as they help mothers put food on the table. That's what Innovative Volunteerism Voices is all about. On this channel, Innovative Volunteerism Voices, we see solutions undertaken by young people. We see graduates from universities retooling their skills, turning their skills into opportunities. That's what you will listen and that's what you will see. Here we speak solutions. Here we speak ideas on how those ideas have helped put food on the table of a mother in a village. Here, nothing else triumphs but new knowledge. That's what Innovative Volunteerism Voices stands for. Inspiration to usher others into action. Inspiration to inspire others to see themselves as the solution providers. Because let's always remember, we are the ones we need. Stay tuned. Yes, and that was it for today. And we shall again catch up tomorrow to discuss how we can all together leverage again on context to make transformational development and spur climatepreneurship opportunities in the continent and across the world. Until then, have a nice evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. Thank you for watching and for tuning in. Bye-bye.